stars looked different when you knew you were the first human to see them from this angle. Captain Lee Jun pressed her palm against the cool metal of the navigation panel and watched the jump countdown tick toward 0. In 30 seconds, the use harmony would complete humanity's longest journey and make first contact with beings who had traveled between stars when Earth was still cooling. Jump complete, she announced to her crew. Welcome to the galactic neighborhood. The bridge fell silent as everyone stared at the view screen. 3 massive ships hung in space before them, each one larger than anything humans had ever built. One looked like it was carved from a single piece of crystal. Another seemed to be made of flowing metal that moved like water. The third was so bright it hurt to look at directly. Communications officer Parkman cleared his throat. Captain, we're getting a signal. They want to talk. The crystal ship's transmission came through first. The view screen flickered and showed something that made Lee's breath catch. The alien looked like a living diamond, its body catching and throwing back the light in patterns that seemed almost musical. When it spoke, the sound made the air around them vibrate. Welcome, humans of the third spiral arm. I am Velthera of the crystalline hegemony. We have watched your species develop faster than light travel. You will now follow our integration procedures. These procedures have not changed for 847,000 of your years. Dr. Kim Hanna looked up from her science station. As the mission's expert on alien life, she had prepared for many things, but not this. The way the alien said not changed sounded like it was proud of the fact. Integration procedures, Captain, Lee asked. We were hoping we could share knowledge with each other. Learn from your civilizations. Maybe work together on projects. The crystal alien went dim for a moment. Learn, that is a strange word to use when you have reached this level of technology. Most species stop changing within their first 1,000 years of space travel. Your continued changes are unusual. We have noted this as an anomaly. Over the next 3 days, the Harmony was escorted to a huge space station at the center of this part of the galaxy. Lee and her crew met aliens from dozens of different worlds. Some were made of gas that glowed different colors. Others were machines that had once been living beings but had transferred their minds into metal bodies millions of years ago. Some looked almost human, but felt wrong in ways that made Lee's skin crawl. All of them said the same thing. They had been doing things the same way for thousands, hundreds of thousands, even millions of years. The gas beings had used the same type of ships for 2 million years. The machine people hadn't updated their programming in half that time. It's like watching a museum, Dr. Kim told Captain Lee quietly during a break between meetings. Everything here is perfectly preserved, but nothing is alive. Time moves forward, but nothing changes. Nothing grows. The aliens seemed just as confused by the humans. Every time Lee asked, "Why do you do it that way?" Or Dr. Beeksu suggested, "Have you tried this approach?" the aliens would stop talking and stare. Some of them seemed upset by the questions. On the final day, all the alien representatives gathered for what they called an integration ceremony. Resonance Prime Velthara stood at the center of the Great Hall and began speaking in the same tone someone might use to read a shopping list. The humans will be given Sector 7 Gamma for their colonies. Standard containment protocols will be used until they achieve proper temporal stasis. We estimate this will take between 500 and 1,000 standard years. Captain Lee felt something cold settle in her stomach. Containment? We came here hoping to be partners, not prisoners. The room went completely quiet. Several of the gas beings stopped glowing. The machine people's lights blinked in patterns Lee had never seen before. She realized she might have been the first person to question this process in a very long time. Partnership means change, Velthara said slowly. Change means chaos. Chaos is the enemy of perfection. When you become mature, you will understand this. As the human delegation was led back to their ship, Dr. Kim walked close to Captain Lee and spoke in a whisper. "Captain, I've been taking readings on all these species. There's something strange here. They all show the same kind of energy signature, like they're all being affected by the same field. All of them except us. What kind of field? I don't know yet. But I think we need to figure out why the galaxy stopped growing, and why we're the only ones who seem to notice that it has." The Harmony moved away from the station under escort, heading toward humanity's assigned sector of space. Behind them, the great civilizations of the galaxy continued their eternal, unchanging dance among the stars. And for the first time in millions of years, something new had entered their perfect, frozen world, something that still remembered how to ask, "What if we tried something different?" Dr. Kim Hannah stared at the data screen until her eyes burned. 6 months had passed since humanity's first meeting with the Galactic Federation, and nothing made sense. The numbers on her screen showed something that should have been impossible, but every test confirmed the same result. "Tell me again what you found," she said to Dr. Choi Young, who was sitting at the next workstation surrounded by brain scan images. "Every alien species we've tested has the same problem," Choi said, pointing at the colorful pictures of alien brains. "The parts that control curiosity, creativity, and the willingness to try new things are basically shut down. It's like someone flipped a switch and turned off everything that makes a person want to explore or invent." Dr. Biksu looked up from his computer, where he had been reading thousands of years of alien history. "I think I know when it happened. Every single civilization has the same story. They grow, they learn, they build amazing things, and then something they call the convergence event happens. After that, they stop changing forever." Kim walked over to look at his screen. "Show me." Beak pulled up a timeline. "Look at the zip. They invented faster-than-light travel about 500,000 years ago. They were exploring, building new types of ships, trying different approaches to everything. Then, exactly 300,000 years ago, they had their convergence event. Since then, they've built the exact same crystal cities on every world they've colonized. Not similar cities, identical ones." "What about the Vorthons?" Kim asked. "Same pattern? 2 million years of growth and innovation, then convergence. Then 2 million years of doing exactly the same things over and over." Beak shook his head. "It's like they all just decided to stop living and start existing." Kim felt a cold fear growing in her chest. "What about humans?" "That's the strange part," Beak said. "No convergence event anywhere in our history. We've been chaotic and unpredictable from the beginning. We never stopped changing." Before Kim could respond, the laboratory's communication system lit up. Captain Lee's image appeared in the air above their workstation, but she looked worried, in a way Kim had never seen before. "We have a problem," Lee said without any greeting. "The human colony on New Busan has been sharing a research facility with a Vorthon outpost for 3 months. Yesterday, something happened at the Federation. Says is impossible." "What kind of something?" Kim asked. "The Vorthons asked to change their building design. They want to add rooms where they can sit and watch human children play." Lee paused. "According to Federation records, the Vorthons haven't modified their architecture in 2 million years." Kim felt the laboratory suddenly become very quiet. Even the humming of the computers seemed to stop. "There's more," Lee continued. "One of the Vorthon workers has started asking questions about human games. It wants to know why we play activities that don't have predetermined outcomes. It's fascinated by the concept of fun when the purpose isn't to achieve a specific goal." Dr. Choi dropped his tablet. "If being around humans is causing Federation species to start changing again, then we're not just different," Kim finished. "The thought, we're contagious." Over the next few hours, more reports came in from human settlements across their assigned sector of space. A crystalline hegemony artist had created a sculpture that wasn't based on any traditional pattern. A group of nebula collective entities had composed music that didn't follow their species' ancient harmonic rules. Most shocking of all, several alien individuals had started using personal names instead of their functional designations. "They're remembering what it feels like to be individuals," Kim said as she read through the reports. "After millions of years of being identical members of their species, they're becoming unique." But the news wasn't all good. Emergency broadcasts from Federation worlds showed the chaos that was beginning to spread. On some planets, aliens who were starting to change were being forcibly contained by those who remained in stasis. The Zephyrian High Council had declared the human influence a contamination that needed to be eliminated. "They're scared," Beak observed. "For millions of years, they've lived in perfect, predictable order. Now some of their people are remembering what it means to want something different, and it terrifies them." Kim's instruments suddenly started beeping urgent warnings. Long-range sensors were detecting massive energy buildups throughout the galaxy. Ancient systems that had been dormant for eons were coming online. "What are we looking at?" Choi asked. Kim studied the readings, her face growing pale. "Some kind of suppression network. Massive installations hidden near black holes and neutron stars throughout the galaxy. They're all activating at once." "Why now?" "Because we're here," Kim said quietly. "Whatever is keeping the Federation species locked in stasis, it's trying to adapt to handle the human anomaly. The question is, will it try to suppress us, or will it eliminate us?" Outside the research station's windows, the stars continued their ancient dance. But for the first time in millions of years, the galaxy was beginning to stir from its long sleep, and no one knew what would happen when it fully awakened. Dr. Kim Hanna's hands shook as she looked at the computer screen one last time. 3 weeks of secret research had brought her to this moment. What she had discovered would either save every living thing in the galaxy or destroy humanity forever. She stood in the meeting room of the hidden ship Breakthrough, looking at faces that appeared as glowing holograms around the table. Leaders from human colonies across their small section of space had gathered to hear what she had found. None of them looked happy. "I know what's controlling the galaxy," Kim said. "It's called the Eternal Stabilizer Array." Dr. Choi Young pressed a button, and suddenly the room filled with a 3-dimensional map of the entire galaxy. Thousands of red dots pulsed throughout the spiral arms like a heartbeat. 47,000 machines, Choi explained. Each one sends out a signal that affects the brains of intelligent species. The signals target the parts of the brain that control curiosity, the desire to try new things, and the willingness to take risks. Governor Yoon Mira's image flickered as she leaned forward. "Who built these machines?" Dr. Biksu cleared his throat. "An ancient race called the Architects. They're extinct now, but we've managed to translate some of their records. Apparently, they lived through some kind of galactic disaster. Wars, chaos, entire civilizations destroying themselves because they advanced too quickly. The stabilizer array was their answer to the problem. Their solution was to make everyone stop growing." Captain Lee asked from her command ship. "Exactly," Beak replied. "Once a species develops space travel, the machines gradually make them lose interest in changing or improving. It happens so slowly that the species thinks it's natural maturity." Kim brought up another display showing human and alien brain scans side by side. "The question everyone's been asking is why the machines don't work on us. The answer is timing and the way our brains work." She pointed to the colorful patterns on the screen. "The suppression field was designed for species that developed space travel slowly and methodically. Humans are different. We achieved faster than light travel through what can only be called organized chaos. We had dozens of competing theories. We tried crazy experiments. And honestly, we got lucky a lot. Our brains are too scattered for the machines to get a good lock on us," Choi added. "Plus, we arrived after the system had been running for millions of years. It's designed to slowly change civilizations that are already there, not to immediately affect newcomers." The room fell silent as everyone absorbed what this meant. Every great civilization in the galaxy had been secretly lobotomized by machines that were older than complex life on Earth. Kim's expression grew darker. There's worse news. Our presence is breaking the system. The machines were built assuming the galaxy would stay stable forever. The fact that we're causing other species to wake up is overloading the network. Admiral Park G's hologram frowned. What kind of overloading? The machines are trying to compensate by working harder, Kim explained. But they're creating problems with time itself. Space and time are getting twisted near some of the machines. We've found places where time moves slower or faster, and 2 star systems where time is moving backward. Governor Yoon spoke first, after a long pause. So our choices are to let the machines eventually figure out how to suppress us too, or keep existing and watch the universe destroy itself, trying to contain us. Kim shook her head. There's a third choice. The array has a central control system in the center of the galaxy. If we could reach it and turn off the entire network, we'd free every species in the galaxy, Captain Lee said. But we'd also release millions of years of suppressed creativity and ambition all at once. Beak nodded grimly. Imagine if every Federation species suddenly remembered what it felt like to want more than they had. After millions of years of perfect stability, the galaxy would explode into chaos. Some species might not survive the transition, Admiral Park pointed out. There would be wars, competition for resources, expansion conflicts. Kim met each of their gazes. The alternative is letting the array eventually find a way to suppress humanity or destroy us entirely. And given the time distortions we're already seeing, waiting much longer might not be an option. Captain Lee stood up. The galaxy was alive. Once, it grew, it changed, it dreamed of new possibilities. What we have now isn't peace. It's death wearing the mask of perfection. The Federation won't see it that way, Governor Yoon warned. They'll do everything they can to stop us. Then, we'd better move fast, Admiral Park replied. How long before the time distortions become permanent? Kim checked her calculations again. 6 months at most. After that, the damage to spacetime might be irreversible. Outside the ship's windows, stars that had shown unchanged for millions of years flickered strangely as the ancient control system struggled to contain the chaos that humanity had brought to the cosmos. Soon, someone would have to decide whether the galaxy deserved the right to grow again. Even if growth meant the risk of falling, the war that would reshape the galaxy began with a simple question. Harmony Minor 9847, a crystalline hegemony worker, stopped in the middle of constructing her 50,000th identical building and asked her supervisor something no one had asked in millennia. Why do we always build the same thing? Dr. Kim Hanna watched the reports flood her screens as the ship Breakthrough raced toward the center of the galaxy. What humans had started was spreading like wildfire, and the ancient civilizations were tearing themselves apart, trying to deal with it. New report from Colony 47 Alpha called out Communications Officer Lee Su from her station. The Vorthan Collective on Kepler Prime has completely fallen apart. The individual workers are asking for personal names and refusing to do their assigned jobs. They say they want to explore creative pursuits. Captain Lee shook her head in wonder. After 2 million years of perfect order, they've just discovered what it means to be individuals. But the news wasn't all good. Dr. Choi Young looked up from his analysis with a grim expression. The Zephyrian High Council has declared what they're calling a holy war of purification. They're destroying any of their own colonies that show signs of what they call chaos infection. We're talking about billions of deaths. Dr. Biksu added more bad news. The Nebula Collective is splitting apart. Some of the entities want to embrace the changes, but others are trying to force themselves back into the old ways. They're fighting a civil war unlike anything they've experienced since before recorded history. Admiral Park Ji's face appeared on the main communication screen. His ship was leading the human fleet toward the galactic core, but his expression showed he was worried about more than just enemy fleets. "The situation is getting worse," he reported. "Our long-range sensors are picking up massive problems with time itself throughout the outer galaxy. The stabilizer array is working overtime, trying to suppress all the awakening minds, and it's starting to rip holes in the fabric of space and time." Kim studied the readings flowing across her instruments. The ancient machines that had controlled the galaxy for millions of years were failing, and their failure was threatening to destroy everything. "How bad are the temporal distortions?" she asked. "2 entire star systems have been frozen in time," Admiral Park replied. 3 others are experiencing time loops where the same day repeats over and over, and there's a region near the Horsehead Nebula where time is moving backward. Captain Lee moved to stand beside Kim's workstation. "Status on the awakening species?" "It's chaos," Lee Su reported, reading from her communication logs. "The awakened crystalline entities have modified their harmonic weapons into something completely new. They're using them to create art that can be seen from space. The freed Vorthan units are working together in ways their species has never attempted before, and some of the Nebula collective entities are exploring emotions they don't even have names for." "Are they fighting with us or against us?" Captain Lee asked. "Both," Kim replied. "The awakened ones are helping us reach the galactic core, but the ones still under the array's control see us as a disease that needs to be eliminated." The tactical display showed the scale of the conflict. Massive Federation fleets were converging on the galactic center, determined to stop humanity from destroying their perfect order. But scattered among them were smaller groups of awakened species, fighting alongside humans for the right to remain unpredictable. "Message from the Free Minds Alliance," Lee Su announced. "That's what the awakened Vorthans are calling themselves now. Their leader used to be Worker Prime 7743, but now he calls himself Individual Who Chooses His Path. He says his forces are holding the outer defensive line." Despite the danger around them, Kim found herself smiling. The former Worker Prime had not only gained individuality, he had learned to give himself a name that described who he wanted to be. "The Crystalline Rebels are reporting similar success," Choi added. "They've abandoned their traditional defensive formations and are using tactics that seem to make no sense, which is apparently very effective against enemies who haven't adapted their strategies in a million years." But the closer they got to the galactic core, the more dangerous the situation became. The array's central control system was putting out more power than ever before, trying to suppress the growing rebellion. The effort was warping space and time in ways that threatened to tear the galaxy apart. "Time distortion report," Beak called out. "We're seeing regions where cause and effect are breaking down. Ships are arriving at battles before they leave their home ports. Some Federation fleets are fighting versions of themselves from different timelines." Kim looked at the readings and felt a cold fear settle in her stomach. The array is overloading. If we don't shut it down soon, the temporal damage could become permanent. "How long do we have?" Captain Lee asked. "Maybe hours, maybe days. The math breaks down when space-time itself becomes unreliable." Through the viewports, they could see the strange effects of the failing array. Stars flickered between different colors as time flowed unevenly around them. Space itself seemed to ripple like water. The galaxy was waking up after millions of years of sleep, but the process might destroy it entirely. Everything now depended on whether they could reach the array's control center and shut it down before. The universe forgot how to make sense. The silence lasted exactly 47 seconds. Dr. Kim, Hannah sat perfectly still as her instruments registered the moment the eternal stabilizer array died. For millions of years, the ancient machines had kept the galaxy locked in perfect, unchanging order. Now, in the space of less than a minute, that control was gone forever. What happened next was beyond anything she could have imagined. "Something's happening," Dr. Choi Young said, his voice shaking as he stared at his readings. "The instruments are showing millions of years of suppressed creativity and innovation, all activating at the same time. This shouldn't be possible. Through the ship's windows, Kim watched the impossible become real. Crystalline worlds that had looked identical for hundreds of thousands of years suddenly erupted with new building designs that seemed to bend the laws of physics. Vorthan ships began changing shape right before their eyes, as their crews remembered what it meant to improve and experiment. The Nebula Collective entities started glowing in colors that had never existed before. Report from Admiral Park, called Communications Officer Lee Su, her voice filled with amazement. The Federation fleet has stopped attacking us. Half their ships are changing themselves, as their crews experience what he's calling evolution. Shock. Captain Lee moved closer to the tactical display. What exactly is evolution shock? Imagine if you suddenly remembered everything your species could have learned and built over the past million years, but had chosen not to, Choi explained. All that knowledge, all those possibilities, hitting you at once. The results were different for every species. The Zephyrian ships were transforming into completely new shapes, as their crews decided their old designs were inefficient. Some Vorthan vessels had started talking to each other in languages they were making up as they spoke. The Nebula Collective entities were splitting into new subspecies right in front of everyone's eyes. We're getting communication requests, Lee Su announced, struggling to keep up with all the incoming signals. Over 10,000 of them. Species that haven't changed in millions of years are suddenly developing new cultures, new societies, new ways of thinking about everything. Kim watched her instruments track the changes spreading throughout the galaxy. It was like watching a flower bloom, if the flower was the size of the entire Milky Way and bloomed in fast motion. The crystalline hegemony is requesting cultural exchange programs. Lee Su continued reading from her communication board. The Vorthan Free Minds Alliance wants to establish joint research projects. 3 different Nebula Collective factions are asking for artistic collaboration, but not everyone was handling the change well. Reports came in of species struggling with their newfound freedom. Some were fighting civil wars as different groups wanted to go in different directions. Others were paralyzed by having too many choices after millions of years of having none. The Zephyrian High Council is no longer functioning, Dr. Biksu reported. They've split into about 50,000 different artistic communities, each one pursuing a completely different creative philosophy. They can't agree on anything, but they all seem happy about it. What about the temporal distortions? Captain Lee asked. Kim checked her readings. Stabilizing, without the array fighting against the changes. Space-time is healing itself. The time loops are breaking, the frozen systems are starting to move again, and the backward-flowing regions are returning to normal. A priority message appeared on the main screen. It was from the human colony of New Busan, where Governor Yun Myra stood in what had once been the colony's central plaza. Behind her, humans and aliens worked together on buildings that seemed to redesign themselves as they were constructed. The situation here is unprecedented, Governor Yun reported. The awakened aliens aren't just regaining their ability to change and grow. They're experiencing it like children discovering the world for the first time. I watched a crystalline engineer stare at a flower for 6 hours because she had forgotten what beauty felt like. Dr. Beek smiled, despite all the chaos around them. We gave them back their sense of wonder, along with their capacity for war, competition, and potentially disastrous mistakes, Kim added. 2 systems have already started fighting over resources, as their inhabitants remembered what it means to want more than they have. But they also remembered what it means to hope, to dream, to reach for something better, Captain Lee pointed out. The galaxy was dying in all its perfection. Now it's alive again. The next few hours brought constant updates. The hegemony had dissolved into thousands of artistic groups, each one exploring different ideas about beauty and meaning. The Nebula Collective was discovering emotional states they had no words for because they had been suppressed for so long. Everywhere, species that had been content with single planets for millions of years were suddenly launching ships to explore new worlds. New civilizations are forming faster than we can track them, Choi reported. Species that had been satisfied with the same routine for 1,000,000 years are suddenly launching exploration missions, starting research projects, creating art. Kim looked out at the galaxy spread before them. For the first time in eons, it was truly alive, chaotic, unpredictable, and absolutely beautiful. Status report on the human colonies, Captain Lee asked. Thriving, Governor Yoon replied through the communicator. Everyone wants to be our neighbors now. They're calling us the species that broke the clock and gave time back to the universe. The galaxy was growing up again, and no one knew what tomorrow would bring, exactly as it should be.